Hey guys, we have a special guest joining us at the Tavern today. You've seen him on GCW, Ring of Honor, most recently Noah, Mr. Ninja Mack. How's it going, man?
Ohio, good morning, Turnbuckle Tavern. How's everything going today?
Man, we're not doing too bad over here. It's nice to see you. I know it's early over there for you.
Very early, but when you got to get to work done, let's get some work done. So early is never a bad thing when you're trying to work.
Yeah, man. We appreciate you coming on. I know, you're in Japan right now. It's early morning, it's evening for us. You're crushing it in Noah, dude. Having some banger matches, Yohei, tons of cool stuff going on with Noah. Like, how did that all come about? Was that did that happen pre-pandemic and that kind of set you back on that? And how did it kick back off for you?
Well, I've watched Noah from a early age growing up, and in 2015, I did a Harley race camp um, out in St. Louis when I was just first starting wrestling for Booker T at Reality Wrestling. I actually went out there with Ruthless Ryan Davidson, who's one of the head trainers at Booker T's Reality Wrestling School. And that was my first introduction to actually meeting Marufuji and Remy. And it just gave him more mm, what's the word I'm looking for? More objectives, more goals to even get over to Japan wrestling. Because when I was watching it at an early age, I was watching Muta, I was watching Kenta and Marufuji in 2004, 2005, starting to take over that junior division. So I was already hooked. But then when I got to meet Marufuji in person, and just see their training, seeing their discipline, it hooked me even more to just inspire me to go. And then when I kind of took a break from wrestling for a little bit, and when the pandemic kicked off, I actually started with local wrestling again down in Houston, and within the first three shows, me Dante had a match, me Dragon Bane had a match, and Noah called 30 minutes after that Dragon Bane match. I believe Dragon Bane coming out of Mexico, him and his brother Alpha, they were already at Noah, so I think Noah got eyes of me in an actual match from that match. And actually, shout out to Wrestling with Unicorns because it was their clips that went a little viral from that match that I think they saw and got whim of.
That's all. So when they reach out, like you're a fan, you love that style. What's that mean to you? How do you take a company like that reaching out and being like, "Hey, we want to work with you"?
It's showing me the work I'm putting in is the right work at the moment. Obviously, I still have a lot more room to grow, and I'm doing that over here tremendously, seeing their work style and work ethic, and being fortunate for them to let me come over and go home because I signed a 1 year contract, but it wasn't for 1 year straight. So I usually do about 4 weeks here, 4 weeks home. I'm actually on my long stretch where I got 10 weeks. I'm wrapping up 10 weeks now. I go home for 4 weeks and then I come back for 12 weeks. So I'm in the long stretch of the contract. So for them to reach out and they reached out before GCW, they reached out before AAA. So it was pretty early, not early in the pandemic. I want to maybe say that February, March time. But my first show at GCW out in Tampa, Florida, they reached out probably about 2 weeks before GCW and AAA did. So with them reaching out first, I've had a couple offers from other companies, and I've stuck to my guns. I've wanted to go pursue Noah. I wanted to come try it over here, and just something about them reaching out to me first, being the first ones to show interest, really caught me.
Yeah, man. What's the you mentioned the kind of the work ethic you're noticing and the just the hard work that the guys put in over there. What is the difference you're seeing as far as just the wrestling culture of Noah versus kind of in the States and the indies and stuff like that?
If I'm to compare it to the indies, there is no comparison. To my and maybe this is just my experience around the people I'm in Texas, and there's some really good talent in Texas, and probably some of the best talent on the indies from Texas. but the work ethic, what they're doing here on an everyday basis, they do their rolls, they do their stretches. They're doing 1,000 reps, which consists of like 300 push-ups, 300 sit-ups, in different forms of it, not just 300 each. And then what is it, 400 squats to make their 1,000 reps. They're doing 250 bumps every day, sets of 50 bumps, depending on the variations, how they're training. And they have a system, so it's not like you just bump 250 times. They'll be bumping certain ways, and once they see them get to a certain level, they progress into different bumps. And they're doing this not just on one day out of the week. They do this on Monday. They do this on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They do get one day off, depending on if we have a show Friday, Saturday, they'll get Sunday off. If we have a show Saturday, Sunday, they get Friday off. But they do that workout when they go to the show before the matches also.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they don't just do that workout. Now this is more young boys. The older NOAA representatives, they still work out hard. They're just not doing the 250 bumps right before a match.
Yeah.
Just to preserve their body. But watching the young boys do those bumps, and they set up the ring, they bring the bags in, and they have to do all this even just to get approved to wrestle a match. So to compare the indies to them, it's not fair, because the indies in America, you look good, you got something that's catchy, you can be doing a show in a weekend or two. The young boys train for 2 years, and if they don't qualify through the test, they don't get to have their beginning matches. And they have to have so many beginning matches before they even allowed to even consider, hey, maybe I should try this, maybe I should do this. So they pretty much just get their asses whooped.
Yeah. So you said you're on your long stretch, 10 weeks, Texas boy. What's it like being over there? The wrestling, you're talking about the differences in just the training of the wrestling, but what's it like being away from home for that stretch of time, being in a new country with a new culture, the food, just the day-to-day lifestyle when you're not busting your ass in the gym? What's your time like in this new culture in your off time?
Just I would say my first tour was 4 weeks, and I was a little more adventurous. I went to all the cities, Shinjuku. I was staying right in Tokyo. Right now, I'm a little above Tokyo, but more by the dojo. Now that I'm more by the dojo and I'm doing this longer stretch, it's not my first tour. It's actually my third tour. So I haven't done much of traveling, only because I've really committed to just being in the ring, being in the gym 2-3 times a day right now. I have a pretty big match coming up for the Junior GHC Heavyweight Championship against Hayata next weekend. So I've grounded down. I've prepped for that. I'm preparing for that still. Food's great over here. I love Japanese food's great. Cheap too, which cheap as in just money for them, because the food quality is amazing. But you can get so much, which is so hard for me because I'm a fat ass and I love to eat. But I'm having to balance that out right now because I am getting ready for the match. Um, it's culture shock. I've traveled a lot before wrestling, just with my previous jobs, and with wrestling, I've already been to 5 different countries with this last 2 years. So I mean, just every time I've been able to travel to a new country, it's a culture shock. But now that I've been able to stay in this country for a good amount of time, you learn to appreciate the cultures. You learn a lot about the people. I've developed some friendships with the wrestlers, some Japanese friends. So I mean, I'm not gung ho to train every day, but I mean, if you ever wanted to go to a bar, you just go down to Shinjuku. It's just like going out on the town. You can go bar hop if you like. I'm laser focused at the moment, so I've avoided my bad problems.
That's awesome, man. So like, talk a little bit about your upcoming match and your opponent. That's a big match coming up. What's that crowd going to be like?
So this is in the new arena down right south of Tokyo. It will be our first show where voices are allowed. So for the last since I've been here, and then previously everyone's only been able to clap, and you've actually had to sit apart. So they haven't even opened up to 100%. So that'll be the first show where they open up to 100%. Voices are allowed. So this will be my first time to actually be in front of a Japanese crowd. So I don't know what to expect. I hope it's loud. I hope it's packed. I know ticket sales are already doing great, but to already be here on and off for 6 months, and I haven't able to. I get them like when I do when you see the Sasuke special and you see the crazy stuff, I get them to win and go. So I was already getting them to break the rules, and I think that's why Noah liked me, which was good. But now I get to hear them cheer, so it's going to be very interesting. But Hayata is such a good champion. He's already had 6 title defenses. He is a fan favorite, so it's yeah, man. You got two big battling stars going at it coming up. We've had a couple tag matches against each other. He got the best of me with his Stinger team and my random opponents. And then I actually had the help of Muta, which got me the win over Hayata this last weekend. So that kind of gave me a little confidence going into the match. So now that it's one-on-one, there's no more tag partners. We're about to find out who's the strongest and best junior we have at Noah.
What's it like being working with Muta? Such a legend.
Such a legend. It's a little crazy of an experience. I've been in a room with some pretty big stars. Like I said, I started with Booker T. I've worked with a little bit with Low Key. I've been into a ton of locker rooms with many big stars. But to go into the locker room with Muta, and he has his own room, and then Marufuji's in there with you, and they are just his presence. It was something unlike anything I've ever felt before. And man, it's the respect he commands without having to say anything. He just sits there, and man, the respect you have to give him. It's a whole different dimension when you walk into that room with Muta.
So with AEW, recently announcing a partnership with Noah, and you've kind of worked peripherally with the brass. Tony Khan purchased ROH. You were on the Super Card of Honor. Do you think that's going to open up any doors to possibly see yourself maybe jumping in a little bit of the talent sharing that may happen between Noah and All Elite Wrestling Ring of Honor?
If Pro Wrestling Noah allows it, maybe. I know they were very great to me when I went to Ring of Honor. Tony Khan, when I was able to meet him, was a very nice guy. They were very supportive in everything I wanted to do, which was awesome. Obviously, Brian Cage whooped my ass that night a little bit, but that's Brian Cage, and he's about to be one of the next champions. So, but if when they do any kind of crossover promotion, if they reach out, I'm always willing to gamble and listen to business, but at this time, I represent Pro Wrestling Noah. So I will take Noah, and I will ride Noah over AEW in a match if I need to.
That's awesome, man. I know, it's a great time, for just speaking for myself, to be a fan, with these companies working together. We've seen, AEW talent go to GCW, which you're a staple. You've become a staple of GCW. I think one of the fan favorites in that company. But before we get into, Game Changer Wrestling and all of that, you grew up in Texas. Were you a wrestling fan as a child, or was that something that came later?
No, I've always watched WWF. I've never been to shows. I've always just watched, and then even growing up through doing my circus shows previously, I've always just been taught as a performer and an entertainer that I don't I don't go if I'm gonna go to a show, I'd rather be on the show working. So I've always avoided wrestling shows, but if I'm at the shows, I love watching. But I've watched WWF growing up when it switched to WWE. I watched WCW when I was younger. Like I said, I watched when when I was a kid in Texas on Telemundo. I think it was like Channel 3. We used to watch a lot of AAA, and that was
That's awesome.
that gave me a good experience of the lucha world because I was really hooked at lucha at first. But I also believe there was some crossover with Liger and some of the Japanese wrestlers in AAA, and that's when it really hooked me to get into Japan wrestling. And then every now and then, I don't know if it was VH1, it was a very random channel, and it came on late at night. You'd be able to watch some Pro Wrestling Noah on TV back in late 90s.
That's
But
wow.
awesome, man.
like I said, seeing that change in the '90s to the 2000s when Noah was born, like I said, I watched Kenta and Marufuji match so many times, and that was my high school age because I wrestled in high school, and not only did I wrestle in high school amateurly, I was watching it, and watching Kenta and Marufuji's match hooked me so much to see that green ring and try and get over there.
Yeah.
Now, I know you have a gymnastics background, and I know that you spent some time traveling with Cirque du Soleil. Talk a little bit about Cirque du Soleil and traveling with them and how that helped you in the quest to become a professional wrestler.
Well, like I said, I did the workshop for the Michael Jackson tour. So he flew me to Montreal. He sat there and we kind of guinea pigged me out for some of the ideas. And then when you're touring with some of the circus jobs, you get bored. So I would wrestle and we'd play around with some of the people on the tour. And on my last tour, it wasn't with Circus Soleil on my last tour. It was with Sam Trigo Productions. We were wrestling, I think, just outside the hotel, like by a beach. And then the guy was like, "Hey, you're really good at wrestling, and you know how to do some crazy flips." I was an indie wrestler once, and it might be something to look into. And I was like, "Oh, like WWF?" And he's like, "Yeah, just but there's a whole indie scene, just kind of like what we're doing now, because you have Circus Soleil, and then you have a bunch of different circuses, like an indie scene." So
Right.
I did a lot of the indie scenes too, to where when I met the guy Nick, he said, "Yeah, go try it out. You either want to be on the West Coast, you want to be kind of in the Texas Houston area where Booker T has a school, or you want to get down to Florida." And I was like, "Well, the funny thing is, I'm actually from Houston." So he told me about this on a Thursday. I was flying home on a Friday night. When I flew home, I called that Booker T Reality Wrestling School, and on Sunday I did my first fantasy camp. Never went back to the circus.
Wow.
God.
So you didn't really have it in mind to be a wrestler until you were doing the circus scene.
Yeah, I was coming up with acts. I was at the time I was doing fire spinning, a lot of trampoline, Chinese pole. Like I say, you just come up with different acts to be more useful. And on just being on the last tour, the guy kind of pitched the idea, and it just happened to work. And we weren't even at Booker T's new location. So his old location was a lot closer to me too. It was a 20-minute drive to go to Booker T school from my house. So when I made that call and he said, "Yeah, we're having one of our first fantasy camps this Sunday. Come through." Man, that camp produced so many wrestlers. I said, you got Young. I don't know if you know who Young is. She goes around on some of the shows. You got Miranda Alizé, Lucha Batty, who used to be with, oh man, it'd be bad if I said the wrong show, but maybe she did work with Ring of Honor. I could be wrong with that, but a lot of these top Texas talents came from that fantasy camp and Booker T's Reality Wrestling School.
So when you're what's something when you look back at your time there with Booker T, is there one thing or something that sticks out to you that he kind of a piece of wisdom he imparted to you that you're like, man, I still think on that to this day?
Of course, find your Romeo and Juliet, find your Shakespeare. And that's not just a reference to him doing his king gimmick in SmackDown. It's at a certain level, everyone can wrestle, everyone can drop kick, everyone can drop elbows. What's gonna separate you from this other wrestler that can do a drop kick? What's gonna separate you from this other wrestler? You both can do promos. You both get on the mic in front of 100, 200, 300 people, but what's going to separate you? So he would use the phrase, "What's your Romeo and Juliet? What's your Shakespeare?" And that didn't click. That didn't click the first couple years, and then here we are, year 5, 6 after a 2-year break, and it's clicked. I completely understand what he's meant now. It just took time to really get going and click in for me.
So with finding that character, and I might be wrong, Google can lie to you sometimes, but I've heard that the person that really kind of pushed you towards donning the hood, wearing the mask, becoming Ninja Mack, and really leaning into that was kind of your work with AAA and Conan. Is that?
Yeah. So when I came back to wrestling after Booker T's school, I was contemplating. I had a child, so having the kid and becoming a father, I took time to be dad. And then at that point, I was contemplating, should I get back to wrestling? Should I try and do another circus run? And then when the COVID stuff really kicked off and I wasn't working, I just went back to training. And then we started our local wrestling show. And when I would wrestle, I would take my mask off. It wasn't even this mask. It was a very bland black mask when I first started because I came back as just Ninja. But I would take my mask off against luchadors, and I would keep my mask on against American wrestlers because I was wrestling 3 or 4 times a weekend in Houston. There's so many wrestlers and promotions. And as that evolved, and when Conan brought me in for AAA, they're like, hey, well, no more mask on, mask off. You're gonna wrestle luchadors and you're gonna keep it on. And Conan hooked me up with my designer. I sent him the designs. The guy made it. Beautiful material. That was my first set of gear. So thank you, Conan. Thank you, AAA. And since then, I don't know if y'all know this, but I'm a bit of a gambler. The whole want to make a bet and bet that phrase. So my colors originally were black and red that I would like to wear, like a roulette table or blackjack cards. So instead of going mask on, mask off, I decided to go the route, hey, red ninja is going to be kamikaze. That's my heel. And black ninja, Ninja Mack, is actually my face character. So I've actually had 2 different styles because I've always tried to work more. I wanted to work 2 matches a show. If I needed to create 2 different characters or 2 different egos or personalities, it just gave me a way to get more work at shows when they can afford it.
That's awesome. What's your gambling of choice? What's your game? What do you like the most?
Texas Hold'em. I'll be the first wrestler with a World Series of Poker gold bracelet. That's going to be the end goal. I need one of those gold bracelets, just like kind of Kurt Angle and his gold medal, and I'm set.
I love it, man. I love it. So, yeah, I asked you the question about Booker T's advice. What about Conan? I mean, he's a mind for the business too. One of the more underrated as far as like just mainstream, as far as having just a genius mind for the business. What was it like working with Conan?
Oh, great. And then leading into going into AAA, I know they were partnered with MLW, and not to say I was against MLW, but the offers and the numbers compared to what I know Noah was already offering, I had Noah in my back pocket, so I was able to kind of push MLW a little away. But I'm very happy and grateful that they gave me an opportunity and a chance. But being able to talk with Conan for those couple weeks consistently on the phone, that guy was able to give me a piece of his brain when I asked, and he was always available when I asked, and I'm very thankful for that. And he knows what he's talking about. He's got a good brain. Obviously, you don't want to fuck around with Conan. You fuck around with Conan, you get fucked. So it's like show your respect. Be respectful. Don't be an asshole. Be nice, and he'll be respectful and nice back to you. But I've always tried to treat that with everyone. It's not just. No, there's some people that just rub people the wrong way, and I've always just tried to be respectful to every senior that's paved the way for all of us to be able to get there.
I've never met Conan, but he was always my favorite growing up in the NWO and when he was doing that. But I've always just been I feel like I would be so intimidated to meet him.
Yeah.
It seems like very intimidating.
So
and that kind of just goes in the energy you feed off is the energy he's going to feed off. So if
Yeah.
you give off that intimidating energy, man, he might run with it and be a bully to you. Or
Yeah.
he could be a sweetheart to you. You never know how he's feeling that day. But I think I've always, like I said, I've never really been intimidated, but I've always gave people respect. Never been too much of a dick, I don't think. And me and him just really clicked off pretty good. So we'd be on the phone and we would just chit chat. We would literally talk for 45 minutes to an hour on an everyday basis when we were just kind of going back and forth negotiating. Cause I just wanted to, hey, what are some stories you went through? You've gone through 30 years, man. You got stories after stories, and just to get words from those guys that have been there for so long and hearing, the more knowledge you have, the more you're prepared for things.
absolutely. So you the way I came across you as a fan was your GCW run. I mean, unreal, dude. You became the guy every show. I feel like fans just knew when you were in a match, shit was going to be wild. You were going to leave some memorable moment. And to me, matches are great. You know, we all love great matches, but it's about those like what the fuck gifable moments. And you're like a human highlight reel in pro wrestling. After every GCW event, your gifts would flood social media. Um, how did that come about with GCW, Brett Lauderdale, and those guys? And walk me through your mindset when you're going into a match, into these matches in GCW. Like, where's your head at with that?
Oh gosh, dude, you asked the other wrestlers, it'd be hard to tell you. So going back to when Noah called me for the Dragon after the Dragon Bane match, the plan was to leave the week after Tampa, that April show. So when GCW called me, and I was like, "Oh man, that'd be such an honor," but I don't think I can make it to your show out in Tampa. I'm about to go to Japan. COVID got worse in Japan, and they kept the border shut. So when they kept the borders shut, I gave Jimmy Lloyd, who reached out to me first, and I was like, "Hey, Japan kind of shut down on me, so I'm kind of available. You still have a spot in that scramble match for me?" He's like, "Yeah, come on out." So and to my benefit, I bought my first plane ticket, and obviously flights were pretty cheap back then with the COVID thing, so it wasn't too bad. But I bought my own ticket to Tampa. I found ways to stay in Tampa for 3 or 4 days and just make it work. But doing that first match on Jimmy Lloyd's Degeneration F show and that scramble changed everything for me because they saw what I could do. I said just from that first match, I went crazy and viral. And since then, they just said, "Hey, open door. You tell me when you're available. You'll be booked on the show." And Brett Lauderdale, Joey Janela, thank you for everything in this last year, because with Japan being pushed back a whole year, it gave me the chance to ride out GCW as much as I could and use them to the best advantages I can, be seen, get more experience with better wrestlers, because they gave me some top level indie talent where a lot of indie shows in Texas, when we were just wrestling, I wasn't getting top talent. I was just working the local talent.
Right.
So for them to start giving me high profile matches, my companies in Houston see that, and then I start getting bigger matches in Houston, and everything just kind of snowballed.
So like you when I see you in a match, some of the stuff you know, everybody can do these high spots and stuff, but man, some of the shit you do, I'm like, me and Sneed always talk about if I were to just take a basic clothesline over the top rope, my ass would break my fucking neck and I would be dead. And then I see you pulling off some of this stuff, and you know your gymnastics background is evident. Some of this stuff, but I think of like the spot you had at the Ukrainian Cultural Center in Los Angeles against Speedball Mike Bailey when you dove off that fucking archway and ate shit. And that door, you know, there are more doors over tables in GCW. there
Yeah, they
wasn't a
don't
lot
use
of give.
cables.
There wasn't a lot of give there. So when you're doing a spot like that, man, like, are you thinking about this? Is it a thing where you just go and don't, like, put me in your mindset when you're doing something like that?
I always tell people, because they always look at those crazy dives, the crazy falls. Everything's calculated. I have a child. I would never put myself in a situation I don't think I could handle. Now it sucks that Speedball kicked me faster and harder to where I was the one that fell off, because I wish he was the one that fell off.
Yeah.
But and anytime I've gone for a crazy dive, yeah, in WXW in Germany, I dove, I think, 33 feet, maybe 31 feet onto people. Noah, a couple, like a month and a half ago, was a good 27-foot dive. I don't, not when I'm up in the moment. I don't even contemplate it. I feel at peace. Things slow down. It's so beautiful up there. But at the time when I'm going over it in my head, I feel confident that at the very worst case, if I was just to go splat, I have the ability to round out, roll my body out, and walk away with a bruise and no severe injury. So I know it looks like a crazy fall. It looks very high, but I have full confidence that when I do something like that, I'm not walking away broken. I'm not walking away dead. I trust my abilities. So yeah, it's very risky, but at the same time, I've never been hurt. I'm walking away out of these matches. I'm having matches either later that night or the next day. I'm very confident in my body and my timing.
Now I know you some of the crazy spot and everything that you were just talking about. And one thing I just kind of want to know is the transition from wrestling with a mask or without a mask to wrestling with a mask. Was it hard to adjust to that and to be able to get your timing down? Was that something that was
Oh, yeah, I still
difficult?
don't have my timing. I would say my vision's definitely about 30% less. Breathing's about 25-30% less. When after matches, when I take the mask off, like the room's a different color. So when you're out on the show in front of lights, like luckily I can get through matches in the ring, but man, if I take my mask off in the back, like I'm kind of blind by the lighting for a couple seconds because it's so much darker.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, taking the mask off, and some masks are different. I don't know why. And I'll have the same maker make them, and just some masks come in differently, and it's better. Some masks come in differently, and it's worse. I don't know if it just lines up right or wrong. So it's definitely an inhibitor. It doesn't help wearing a mask, except my pocket and my merch money.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
definitely one of my favorite, man. I love the mask.
I
Hey,
love the
thank you.
mask too. And it all the more impressive, when you're doing those moves, like the calculation, the precision of it with a mask, with your vision being impaired 30%, like you said, the breathing, your cardio has to be that much more just to kind of like circumvent that. It's pretty wild, man. And you talk about you've never been injured in these moves. Do you practice any just like physical
No.
upkeep? Are you stretching? Are you doing yoga? Like,
Yeah. So I stretch. I mean, I'm in the ring. I train. I mean, I wrestle. So I do a lot of jiu-jitsu, MMA, and I wrestle a lot. I mean, I grew up as an amateur wrestler. I know y'all mentioned I did some gymnastics, but I did a lot more amateur wrestling than I did gymnastics. But even right now, when I train, I'm a full believer in Tom Pritchard. When I've gone to a couple of his camps and I've memorized his workouts, and that's how I train in a ring. I don't train the crazy Sasuke special. I don't train a 630. I don't train any of these ninja crazinesses. I I train headlock, takeover, head scissors, kick out, waist lock, reverse the waist lock, arm drag, head scissors, kick out, tie up, fireman carry. I train very basic wrestling, or throughout the week I'm rolling in some jiu-jitsu. I'm rolling in some MMA classes. But no, I don't ever train Sasuke specials or 630s. I've never, outside a show, I've never done that Sasuke special before.
that's wild, man. And it shows, dude, because your fundamentals, like, obviously we're talking about the crazy high spots, but your fundamentals are so grounded, the stories you tell within the ring, and then you sprinkle in the wild ass shit you pull off. It makes for just an entertaining bell to bell match. Now, you mentioned MMA, your amateur wrestling background. I have a tweet from one Josh Barnett, and this tweet was prior to Bloodsport 8. And
Okay.
he said Ninja Mack watched ringside as Yoya and Starboy Charlie fought it out at Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 7. And after Yoya emerged victorious, he came straight to me backstage and said, "I want in. I want a piece of Yoya." You took part in Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 8, which was, I love Bloodsport. I love the presentation. You actually participated unmasked in Bloodsport 8. Talk
Yes.
about that event, talk about that match, and talk about the decision to not don the mask.
Well, in my head, and like I said, growing up wrestling, I'm the oldest of 7 children. We were all wrestlers. All my brothers and sisters went to college for wrestling. I was the outline that went to the circus during college. So to one to get the opportunity to show that kind of a style, which is I'm very comfortable in. It was a lot of fun. I'm very excited because I keep up with fighting and MMA, and that's what I enjoy to do. And then going out there, if as I know in Pride a while ago, Alberto Del Rio wore a mask in Japan when he had one of his fights. But to me, because I've done 2 amateur fights, I never wore a mask in my amateur fights. I know we had headgear in amateur matches, but I never wore a mask. So it only made sense to unmask myself if we were going to really treat this like a fight and take it seriously. And then also being able to be unmasked, like I said, you can show more emotion with your face. So when I got kicked in the face and I'm bleeding from the lips, you can't see the blood coming out my mouth in that match if I have a mask on. Also, some people might say it's a quarter inch of protection during a fight, or
Right.
it could be a risk if I get choked out, if someone's grabbing my mask while I'm getting choked and I can't get them off the mask and it's getting ripped anyways. So for the good or the bad, it was just easier for me to unmask myself. And then also I hope I delivered for Josh Barnett for that match. Once again, I felt like I delivered. I felt like it was a great match. I'm sorry, Yo-Yo, but I got a little bit of size on him. But I hope to get a bigger and a better opponent next time for that Bloodsport.
It was a great match, man. I loved it. I love the way. What's it like being when you're, you've got the amateur background, so it's probably not as big of a change for you. But I love the way they do it almost, the Jean-Claude Van Damme blood sport route. There's no ropes.
Yep,
It's what's that like for you? Is it kind
I
of bring
love
you
it. I
back to
love
the college
Yeah,
amateur?
I loved everything about it. I love I love the ninja gimmick. I love all the crazy stuff I'm allowed to do, but at the same time, there's times when I'm not allowed to wrestle at shows. Because when you got a show of 10 matches, and 7 of your matches, you got some good wrestlers on the show. Well, they need some crazy high flying. So I've taken into the art that I'm there to do what the promoter needs, what's best for the show at the time, and I do what I'm told when I show up to work. So sometimes you see a crazy high flying match with a lot of crazy gifts because that's what the show needs. And then like Bloodsport, when I'm given the opportunity to go out there and actually wrestle and fight, I can pull off that style and show that strong style. So it's trying to just be usable at every show. Like I said, I like to work. So as long as I got a job and I can perform what the promoter needs, I'll be there to work.
Yeah. So, what are some of the positives and some of the negatives with the American independent scene? And now that you've kind of done both, what are some of the positives and negatives for here?
If you're smart enough and you're dedicated enough on the American scene, you can make a very good living through your merch and very cheap bookings. And when I say cheap, I don't mean contract pay, as in like just through those GCW shows, through my merchandise alone from that year, I was very close to 80 to 100 grand for the year just in merchandise and bookings. And I wasn't taking a lot per booking. So a lot of people, some big people do $1,000 or $750 a show. I was grinding out 3 or 4 shows a weekend, but every show I was doing 500 to 1,000 every show in merchandise. So when I'm grinding out, just my business plan, my merchandise sales, I kept very straightforward to what I was doing, and I stayed on top of myself. Um, I also think the bad thing on indies is you're able to just come in and work a show. There's so many shows, and a lot of people just kind of get the free reign to come in and do what they want when they want. Where especially in Japan, when I'm seeing these young boys train, they don't get to call a match. They don't get to call anything in a match. They get told what to do. They get their asses whooped, and you go from there. So I think it's a good and a bad thing if you can pull it off in the American scene, but I do think it hurts us as a whole, where we have so many indie workers that can just come in and do what they want.
So it sounds like with Noah and the Japanese scene, you are paying your dues. You have to get to a level before you can make those calls. Where in the indies, it's like you have a lot of chefs in the kitchen getting to do things maybe before they should be.
No, every chef is in the kitchen doing things before they should be. 98% of wrestlers on the indie scene shouldn't be calling anything.
Wow.
Yeah, you hear that a lot. I mean, a lot of the old timers, people give the old timers shit. You hear that critique from the old timers on the independents. It's like you have to kind of, there's a pecking order. You got to earn that spot.
Yeah, and just kind of, and I know it's weird to hear that from me because I'm the one doing crazy spots every show, but I didn't come into wrestling as a young boy. Even coming into Noah, the first day I showed up, I did the young boy training, no problem. I did all 1,000 reps. I did the 250 bumps. I was even able to wrestle matches after that. So I didn't just show up unprepared. I they give you test matches. I don't know if y'all watched the match with me and Kaito Kiyomiya. That match wasn't just a regular match. One, that's their young ace. They want to see if you can go with one of their young guys, the young ace of the company being a big heavyweight. So that wasn't just a regular match. That's a test match. They want to test you and see where you're at. And not just test you to see if you can do a match, but test you. Are you willing? If he wants to do this, are you going to argue and say I have to do this, or are you going to just say okay? Are you going to be respectful? And I think that's why Noah really bought into me, because I've been very respectful this whole time. I've been very easygoing. I'm not a difficult person to work with. So even going back to Americans on the Indies, I'm fairly easygoing, but I also have a very good mind because I study a lot, and that's why you can see me come up with some good creative matches when I'm asked to. But also, if I have a match with a high level veteran, I don't just go to him and say, "Hey, we need to do this and do this." I go to that match and we figure out what he needs done, what we need out of this match. So I think just the respect level, the respect factor plays a big part.
So, so when you go to these guys and work with them, that seems like it's paramount to getting ahead in the business, more so than being talented. Being easy to work with and respectful will almost get you further than just having raw talent. And you said you study. When you say you study, you're studying the game. Go into that a little deeper. Like, what do you mean by that? Just watching the product, all the product? Like, how do you
I
study?
mean, Since I've been in Japan for 6 weeks, I have 6 notebooks of matches I've wrote down from Noah, from AEW, from WWE, from the top indie matches. I've written down matches. I've written down what I would have done. I've tried to write down what story they came across, what they tried to pull off, what are they progressing to. And then it kind of lines up when I got my Noah book and I'm looking back in 2007 at Innovation from December. What does that innovation show lead to in January? What are they trying to pull off? Because I don't understand a lot of the Japanese. So I have to watch a lot of the matches. What's the story getting pulled off on? When I'm watching GCW and I haven't been there for 4 months, okay, what do I see? I see Jordan Oliver getting his ass worked everywhere. And you know what? He's grinding and he's getting better and he's growing, just like Nick Wayne. Two young stars coming up, going through the grind, but they're getting better consistently every month. Looking at Joey Janela, the guy's phenomenal. I know a lot of people, oh, he's a indie junkyard wrestler, which to me is not true. Joey has great bomb matches with every person he goes out there with, from awesome Mike Jackson, who's like 79,000 years old, to some of the top level talents that are 30 and 40 that have been on TV. So like he's grinding right now also after his AEW run. And these guys are helping carry GCW. So to watch these guys grow, but I'm seeing their growth. I'm seeing the Japanese wrestler stories, what they're trying to tell. What's the timing on AEW and NXT, WWE? Because every match has a certain time because of TV time limits. So what's their time? When I study a match, why did they do this? How fast did they move? How long did they run something? I try and study every aspect of the match. Why didn't they do their finish this match? Are they setting up for something else? Did they hit their finish? Did they cheat with the other people? So what was the promo leading into the match? How long was their promo? It was 33 seconds. Why was it 33 seconds? So every little detail I'm looking into, I'm trying to study and get a grasp. I don't have an agent I can sit here and call like WWE or AEW where they can, hey, what's they have answers to those questions.
Right.
I'd rather just study, put the work in, write it down, and figure it out myself.
I love that, man. That the intricacies of you diving deep. That's why I wanted to know about what you mean by study, because like that stuff fascinates me. You know, being a student of the game, diving into those details. I love that shit, man. And
Hey, it could all be some bullshit. I could just be overlooking into things. I really
Right.
could, but I'd rather overlook and know for sure than have never looked and not know.
Yeah, and you're spot on with what you said about Joey Janela. I think he's doing some of the best work of
Oh, the
his
guy's killing
career.
it. If you're not watching Joey on GCW and Indies, I don't know why you're even watching Indies. The guy, every match is something good. He's putting his body on the line, but he's also telling stories. He's having
Yep.
phenomenal matches with every wrestler. Like the guy is, to me, one of the top talents you can work with.
Oh, dude, the when you were listing off the matches, you know, the Mike Jackson, but the match that pops into my mind that was just a classic to me was his Scotty 2 Hottie match. Phenomenal.
Yeah. And hey, and that's just to show you, he's getting wrestlers the whole X-Pac match to get through that match. He's getting veteran wrestlers interested to come back to wrestling and run one more time. And they're pulling off not just 10 8-minute matches, they're doing 20, 30-minute matches. And Joey's grinding, he's working.
Yeah, I'm going to list off some names here. We're talking Joey Janela. I'm going to list off some of your opponents. Just so we got Joey Janela, we got Low Key, we got Yohei, Gringo Loco, Alex Colon, Brian Cage, Speedball Mike Bailey, the whole Second Gear crew. You've been in there with all those dudes. Blake Christian, Alex Zane, the Briscoes, and on and on and on. Out of all of those dudes, and even people that I did not mention, because you've been in the ring, Jordan Oliver, a who's who of who's out there. Is there like one guy or a couple guys that you look back at your match with them and you're like, man, I learned something in that moment they pushed me to my limit and brought something out of me that I didn't even know I had in me.
Yeah, so easy answer for that. One, I got two answers for you. Both were local wrestling matches, low key. I met low key at that Tampa show at GCW. And then since meeting him, man, he's been a very good mentor and sensei to me. That's been someone I've been able to go to when needed, and anytime I've had questions, I've called up, and he was the one that kind of prepared me for this Japan run and to get me ready mentally and physically, which I'm very grateful for, low key. Um, a very educational match to me. I'm very high paced with what I do. I had a match with Ricky Reyes. Guy's been to Lucha Underground. He's been all over. Guy's 25-year veteran, been over to Japan. And when I had that match with him, that was my most educational match. When we had the match, he told me this was going to happen. We're going to do this. At this point, do this. And to see it pay off, to see it work, because normally I have to work with indie level talent. So
Right.
I have to make sure things make sense, things go right. But with his status and how much of a veteran he was, I let him guide everything and work everything. And man, just seeing what he said was going to work and how it paid off was so eye-opening to me and educational. That was one of my most fun and educational matches I've ever had. Shout out, Ricky Reyes is destroying some Texas talent right now. So shout out to Ricky.
And before we get out of here, you brought up low key. I think he's one of the unsung heroes of just modern wrestling. I don't think he gets talked about enough. The guy is such a no nonsense, hard hitting guy, and everybody puts him over. Talk about being in the ring with him and kind of that mentorship with him. Go into that a little more, because I've always loved low key, and he brings such a hard fucking edge to pro wrestling that I really enjoy.
It goes back to that respect factor. You show someone respect and you're no bullshit, they'll give you respect back. And I think he saw that when I first approached him and I greeted him. I think a lot of indie wrestlers get I don't want to say shy, but they humble away from bigger talent like that. And I was maybe it's just me being a fool, but I went straight up to low key when I had the chance to introduce myself. I actually took the time and invested to fly out to Florida to go train with him a couple of times. I wasn't any bullshit. I think a lot of people want to talk and they'll just, hey, can we set something up where we come fly out? He'll give you your time and then people don't show up.
Right.
I showed up. I went to train. We found a ring. We got some work in. We've gone over some stuff. He's been good. Having the match with him was very, very difficult because he's very hard hitting. But like I said, that's just his style. That's the way he's trained. He's trained in martial arts. So getting hit hard was never a problem for me. I actually appreciate it because a lot of bigger level wrestlers will, especially if they're on TV, they'll be a little nicer to protect themselves. And he is 100% every match, every time, no bullshit. So as long as you were able to show him respect, not have any bullshit, he's been a very good person to me. I've heard some stories. He's been difficult with other people, and in my head, if you got low key to be difficult with you, you were probably the difficult one. Because with my interactions with low key, he's been nothing but great to me.
That's awesome. I love that.
So we got a couple of questions. I have a couple of questions before we let you go. So you had mentioned being a little bit of a gambler. If sports betting, if you're building a parlay, are you more of a money line, spread, or prop bet guy, or a mix of everything?
I get my best wins from money lines, but I'll get a couple props in there, and then depending on the matchups, NBA I do a little more over unders.
Yep.
I mix them up. NFL, MLB, more money line.
Yeah.
What app are you using? You a FanDuel guy? You a DraftKings guy? What you got?
No, I got a sports bookie. I can't do those apps. I got a
real
sports
pro.
bookie.
That's it.
Yeah, but but out in Texas, you can't really bet. Everything's illegal. So I got my sports bookie who's up in Jersey who makes my bets for me, and we work stuff out.
I love it, man. That's old school.
I'm still doing it now. Like in Japan, can't gamble here, so I'm putting in I put my bets in right after this for the day coming up.
I love it, dude. So what's in your? I always like asking this. What's in your CD player? What are you jamming to?
2000 to 2005, Lil Wayne.
Nice.
Yeah,
Carter.
that Lil Wayne, Jay-Z, Linkin Park, System of a Down, Avenged Sevenfold. That whole era of my high school, early college years, and junior high years. But yeah, man, about 2007, 2008 range. I don't break away from that.
Me and Snee were just talking about how System of a Down's Toxicity album is like one of the all-time best.
All time. That was my workout playlist yesterday at the Noah Doja was System of a Down.
On our
if you haven't got the chance, they're remixes on YouTube. Huge fan of the remixes.
Nice.
On our regular podcast, we played Deers the other night.
Yeah.
Love it. Deer Dance.
Deer Dance, yeah. All right, so one final question, man, before we go. You're grinding it out on the indies. You're making towns, going throughout the weekend. Who are three wrestlers that you want to have in the car with you making those towns?
Alive or dead?
Alive or dead, 3 wrestlers.
Ooh, see, I'll change it with that dead one.
Yeah.
Man, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho.
Oh man, you're hitting me in the feels, man. WCW Cruiserweight Division 97-98. It's like that is right in my fucking wheelhouse, dude.
And oh man, I might have to throw. We got a bigger car. I might have to throw a 4th one in there. But
it's okay. We can do a minivan.
We can do a minivan. Man, now you got my brain thinking. Man, Bret Hart would be a nice one to have.
Yeah,
you can't go wrong having Bret Hart ready.
You can't. You'd learn a lot. The excellence of execution, man.
Of course.
Dude, Ninja Mack, man, this was a pleasure. We've been fans from afar for a long time, so to have you on the show and get to chat it up with you has been a lot of fun.
Means the world to that you stop by, man.
Yeah, tell everybody like what you got coming up. Plug all your shit, all your social medias. Let us know where we can find you and where we can watch you in the coming weeks.
Well, you can check out Ninja Mack on the Wrestle Universe app in America. If you're in Japan, you can watch it on the Abima TV app. Everything's real easy with Ninja Mack. You can subscribe to me at Ninja Mack on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. And if you haven't done so, go subscribe to the Turnbuckle Tavern. That's how we make our living, guys, and you can bet that.
Awesome.
We appreciate it, man. Have a good night, Ninja Mack.
Good night.